Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. We always wonder, what do you do when you're in a disaster? What happens when the movie theater becomes a shooting zone? How do you prepare for that? Can you prepare for it? These are things that you need to think about, and I need to think about. We all do. That's why we have George Matheis on the line of Modern Combative Systems to talk about some things. So perhaps you can't prevent the inevitable, but maybe you can avoid it. Hey, George, welcome back to financialsurvivalnetwork.com.
Hey, Jared, glad to be here.
And we're glad to have you. So you hear about these situations like out in Colorado happening. What do? Do you just dive for the floor? Do you try to escape? Do you make a last stand? I mean, I always wonder, what's the proper way to handle something like that?
Well, Jared, the first thing you have to realize is, we pretty much spend our time in three places, usually our home, our place of business, and then other places we go, the gyms, concert venues, and these things are all pretty much made up of boxes. Whenever you go to some place that you're not familiar with, say you're going to a movie theater, which unfortunately I've thought about the situation so many times, and now it came that there actually was the tragedy in Colorado. When you walk into what I call a box, any structure, make sure as soon as you walk in, you're looking for an exit besides the one that you came into, because what a bigger issue is outside of shootings are fires in these places, like, clubs, movie theaters, whatever. People, typically what they'll do when they're stressed out and there's an emergency, they will try to get out the same way that they came in. That leads to a bottleneck. That's how people get trampled. As soon as you come in the door, identify another way that you can get out. The other thing, if you can, be legally armed. If you live in a place that allows you to, carry a concealed firearm, I highly recommend you do so. And even if you carry a firearm, or even if you don't, you really need to have a good flashlight on you in case you're in one of these situations and there's a power outage.
I totally agree with you. And it's funny, you mentioned always have your escape route planned, and not necessarily from a crazy guy, but just fires. In New York, a lot of these clubs are crowded and there's limited ingress and egress. And I've trained my kids. I said, the first thing you do when you go to one of these crowded clubs is you scope out your exits and you have your exit planned. And that's what I've always done. I mean, on the airplane, that's a little far-fetched because your odds there are pretty good, but probably not a bad idea. But certainly, anytime you go to one of these boxes, as you put it, have an escape plan, because I even think about it in hotels, because I was in Vegas recently. I stayed at Bally's. That used to be MGM, where they had that massive fire that killed like 100 people. And you know what? If you'd had your exit strategy done and planned out, then you don't have to think about it, and you don't have to make those decisions and perhaps make the wrong decision at the last moment.
Right. A lot of this stuff really falls into a lot of stuff that I've also taught for civilian response to an active shooter in schools. I have a daughter. She's in high school, and unfortunately, not in her high school, but in her middle school, there was an active shooter situation several years ago in Red Line, Pennsylvania. People can look that up on Wikipedia. and see what happened there. But what I always tell my daughter to do in school, and again, it's just dealing with another big box, is whenever she congregates with friends and she's talking or she's sitting eating lunch, I always tell her the same thing I'd have people do in a movie theater. You want to be close to an exit. As soon as somebody comes in and they're shooting or there's an emergency, you want to get out as soon as possible, because if you don't, then you're nothing more than fish in a barrel. Typically, these active shooters are not going to chase somebody out of the box to go out and shoot them, but if you stay in their yard, you want to get out of the kill zone as fast as possible. Best way to do that is sitting close to an exit, whether it's a restaurant, movie theater, or in a high school cafeteria.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've seen it many times. I've told my kids, so these crowded places, you just need to be able to get out of there. That's really the key. And I've always would rather sit at the back of the auditorium or next to an exit so that I can get out, because, you know, hey, so your view's not quite as good of the act, but push comes to shove, literally, you're going to be out of there. And, you know, and I guess that when in doubt, get out. Really, that's the key, right? If there's any doubt in your mind, if you don't like something, walk.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it's hard to get across to especially, you know, younger people that, you know, bad things can happen when you're having a good time, and that sometimes you have to go out of your way and inconvenience yourself, you know, a little bit to be safe.
Right, and that leads us to the next point. So we had a couple of other topics to talk about.
Yeah, what I wanted to cover today was first aid, because I wrote about this after, you know, the Gifford shooting, and it's a big issue here because what you have is a mass casualty scenario with basically, I believe it was in excess of 70 victims. Well, initially, when they get a call for that active shooter, shots fired, and the police are going to be the first ones and they're going to be respond, but at that time they're acting like police in a tactical response, not giving first aid. They need to secure the situation first, and while they're doing that, EMS is standing by. EMS is not coming in. If you have a, you know, if you have a bad gunshot wound to an artery, you need to do something in that 5 to 10, 15, maybe more minutes before EMS is able to get in. And even if they are to get in, it's just a numbers thing. I don't care how many paramedics they had working. A paramedic only has one set of hands, and you need to be able to take care of yourself. And you're probably not going to have, even if you are, smart enough to have one in your vehicle, you're not going to have it in here. So I want to talk about some things that people could do to save their lives in that first 5 minutes.
Yeah, they need to really limit their movements at that point if you're bleeding, because that'll increase the flow. So you want to do things that are going to minimize the flow, right? Yeah.
What I talk about, and no matter what kind of class or who I'm talking to when I teach this stuff, I call it's pretty much a with arms reach doctrine. Even if you had a good first aid kit, you don't have time to send somebody to get it, or things are so confusing. The first thing, and I use the acronym, is MARCH. The first thing that we need to deal with is if somebody has a massive hemorrhage. If somebody is, bleeding, it's an arterial bleed. You'll be able to recognize it by a spurting like blood. It's going to be very, very dark, almost like a crimson red. First thing you need to try to do is apply pressure. So you can take your sweatshirt off, you can take any towel, anything like that, apply direct pressure. Some people, with the don't want to be exposed to things like HIV and hepatitis and things like that. If there's any plastic handy, a garbage bag, recyclable bag, you could actually put your hands inside that and then apply direct pressure. If that direct pressure is still not working, or at the same time you can add elevation where you can get, if it's an extremity, you got the brachial artery in the arms, the femoral artery in the legs, you want to try to get the source of bleeding up above the heart.
Right.
And if you can't control it with the direct pressure and the elevation, the next thing you're going to have to do, and this is something where unfortunately may have saved some lives out there if people had the mindset to do it, you need to place a tourniquet.
So you really need to be prepared to treat yourself, be your own doctor in the event that that there's a lot of people that might be ahead of you online then, huh?
Exactly. And most people, like I said, people don't need to make, brain surgery out of doing a tourniquet. All you need is a bandana and a heavy pen or anything that you can wind around. And the other good thing is if you're treating yourself, you sit there and you hold it. But if somebody else is bleeding, you can actually help prevent them from going into shock by making them hold that thing closed and having them participate in their care, because I'm sure there was a lot of shock going on. The easiest way to explain shock is when there's not enough oxygen to the cells in your body. Basically, the body is overloaded because of the psychological and physiological damage it's enduring. So whenever you can, you know a little bit more than the person next to you, whenever you can have them help out in their care, that's really going to go a long way. The M is the massive hemorrhage. Then you have A for airway and R for respirations. That means people need to go get their CPR certification and brush up on it. The last part, or I should say the second to last, the C, is circulatory, treating them for shock. And the last part is hypothermia, keeping them warm, because as they do lose blood, they're going to lose body heat. So simply just to cover again, March, massive hemorrhage, airway, respiration, circulatory system, and hypothermia.
That's a good acronym to keep in mind, March. And as we march on to water.
Okay. We talk about water storage. People, take it for granted because they can usually go get it right out of their tap. But what we have to take into consideration is if there's a massive power outage and, not only are you not have drinking water and bathing water, but toilets are going to back up, and not having the sanitation in the house is probably the first thing that's going to drive people, especially in the summertime, going to drive people out of their house. Recommendation is that you have 7 days worth of water. You want 1 gallon per every person in the house and 1 quart per every animal in the house. So for a family of 5 that say they have 3 pets, like myself, I have 3 dogs, family of 5 and 3 dogs, you need to store 40 gallons. So you can go, to Walmart or wherever you want to go and, buy 40 gallons of water, or you can get yourself a couple, nice big jugs and store it yourself. But that's 40 gallons of water for 5 people. And like I said, it'll be 5 people and 3 pets. And the way they break that down is for people, it's going to be 2 quarts for bathing and cooking and 2 quarts for hydration. Now, in the middle of summertime in a heat wave, of course, you're going to need more. But sometimes people think it's a little bit harder than it is. It doesn't take a whole lot of room to store 40 gallons, but it's got to be, it's the first thing, and then you want to worry about your first aid and then your food.
So you should get some of those plastic barrels then and fill them
exactly.
up. Exactly. Huh?
Yeah, if you have a place to do it, I actually just bought one for my house, a 55-gallon drum, and it goes right off your downspout. And it goes into this drum, and you just put a garden hose on there, and you can just use it as you need it. And what you want to do is empty that out and rotate the water, but, it's just water that would otherwise be wasted, and you don't think about it until you need it.
Hey, well, my wife just got a couple of these barrels to capture the rainwater, and I thought she was a little strange at first for doing it, but after talking to you, George, I realize, hey, she's ahead of me in the prepper game here, that's for sure.
There you go.
So anyway, George, to find out more about you, you have a Facebook page?
Yeah, people can check me out. Just go to Facebook. It's Modern Combative Systems, and we talk about all kinds of things on there, everything related to self-reliance and personal protection. All
right. Well, you're my go-to guy when it comes to preparation, personal protection, and just situational awareness, because I think that's the major key is situational awareness, meaning you know what's going on around you. And it seems like men, for the most part, are a little better at it than women, but really that's what everybody, if you're listening and you want to do something without going out and buying a bunch of stuff or whatever, increase your situational awareness?
You know, Terry, just I break it down into three parts. The first awareness is your personal awareness. How are you feeling today? You know, are you on medications from the head cold so you're kind of groggy? You know, is your knees, your back acting up? Are you 100% when you leave the house every day? The second part of that is, like you just brought up, situational awareness. Not only looking what's going on around me, but seeing what's going on around me and understanding how do I fit into it. I'm a retired police officer. When I was on duty, I fit into equations a little bit differently than I did when I was on duty. If you're a nurse, you're working in the hospital versus a nurse off duty, you know, at a car accident, things are going to be a little bit different. And then the part of awareness that so many people, I think, forget, especially men that are even into prepping and training, is the team awareness. There's a lot of things that I can do by myself or things I will do by myself when I don't have my family with me. But when I have my wife and 3 kids, I have to consider the whole team. The team is going to move a lot slower than one person. And if you have somebody, say you have an infant, you have to understand that you're going to be slower to move. So take those are the 3 parts of awareness: that team, self-awareness, situational awareness, and team awareness. Think about it all the time. Do if-when thinking. Run through scenarios in your head so that when they happen, they don't shock you quite as bad.
Exactly. And that kind of fits in with what I say. You need 3 plans: personal financial survival plan, a personal physical survival plan, and a family survival plan.
Exactly.
And to hear this interview, other interviews we've done with George and other people who are preparing for what can possibly happen, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com, get the free newsletter, get the free survival toolkit. And George, we'll talk to you again soon. You be well.
All right. Thanks a lot, brother.
All right. Take care.